What do you think about this generation so far? I mean, whether you're a PlayStation 5 owner, an Xbox Series X owner, or maybe an Xbox Series S owner, I'm very curious to hear what everybody really thinks about this generation as a whole. Now, for me personally, I think it's a little bit of a mixed bag, but I am enjoying the games. I think this year in particular has released quite a few great games, and, obviously Microsoft is planning to continually release games from here on out that do a good job of making sure that they're fun for everybody, different types of games. And I think that's really important. Now, I think one of the most important things is that Microsoft continues to do a good variety of games. And I think that that's going to be what happens pretty much in the future. So, when it comes to what the Xbox Series X can do, though, a lot of people, in my opinion, sort of still underestimate the thing, right? Like, I get it. It's fun to kind of poke fun at Xbox or Microsoft, the beast of all beasts or whatever. That was a fun thing to kind of make fun of for some people. Not for me, but it was fun for some people to make fun of it because the PlayStation was getting a little bit more performance at a particular time for some games. But, again, it's like, I think Sony, if you look at what they're doing, and I'm not really particularly knocking PlayStation, but this was something that Digital Foundry had mentioned at the beginning of the generation. So any game and game engine that was running 30 frames per second last gen, like on PS4, Xbox One, would be able to do double that this gen, right? So if it was 60, you'd get 120. If it was 30, you could get 60. And that's pretty much what it's really been like. Now, I know people go, oh, well, look at this, or this, right? So, in my opinion, you can look at something like God of War Ragnarok. It's certainly a good-looking game, but it looks in line with what God of War 2018 was, right? It basically looks the same. So, they were able to push that to 60. No, that's how that works. You look at something like Horizon Forbidden West. Again, that game looked great, but looked a lot like Horizon Zero Dawn, right? So they can push it to 60. That Spider-Man 2, okay? That game, to me anyway, I'm not that far into it, maybe 5 or so hours, but that game looks very much like Spider-Man Remastered and Spider-Man Miles Morales or whatever. So to me, that's easy why they can push that to 60 frames, When you look at what Xbox is doing, I think that there's been a little bit of, what I believe anyway, is not much of a mandate on keeping frame rates up. But according to this Digital Foundry article, and I will link this so you guys can check it out, it looks like Starfield could actually do 60 frames on the Series X. Around the launch of Starfield, there was a lot of talk about the game's performance on the Series consoles. Of course, in the end, the game released at 30 frames per second with no performance mode on either of their current gen systems, but Digital Foundry thinks there's a scope for that to change in the future, at least on the Series X. Earlier in the month, the dev team put a beta version of the game on Steam, essentially as an in-development build to test out new features earlier than the full public release. And since that point in time, Digital Foundry has been digging into the latest beta build, and thanks to new PC performance improvements could be brought over to console. And I quote, "The game's performance has also improved noticeably with the beta patch. This performance boost is nearly replicated on a lower tier Ryzen 5 3600 system, where I recorded a 17% frame rate improvement with a beta patch installed. This brings the CPU into 60 frames per second territory much more frequently, which makes a big difference on how smooth the game feels to play. This kind of a performance uplift makes me think a performance mode on console could be much more viable now, given that the 3600 and the Series X CPU operate within a similar performance profile. So of course there could be lots of other variables when it comes to the console version of the game, but if Digital Foundry's testing is accurate, Starfield may be capable of getting a much closer to 60 frames patch on Series X since the new beta updates are applied to the full game. For now, the team hasn't made any indication of performance mode will become the Xbox, but obviously a lot of people are hoping that it happens someday anyway. Again, I played through the game. I think that it was fantastic regardless of the frame rate. Like I said, and I've mentioned this numerous times before, there's games where you can absolutely feel that it's kind of chugging or it's a slower frame rate and things like that. Starfield isn't one of those, right? Like whatever they did, whatever they optimized, I think that they've done a really good job with it. I had very little issues with it, of course. Again, and I point this out to most people that I game with, I have a TV that's capable of like VSync and all that kind of stuff. So I don't see the typical stuff that maybe other people would see, like screen tearing and things like that. And it's able to kind of handle some of the frame rate. If there are frame rate issues, it kind of does a good job of handling them in the first place. Like, I haven't seen like screen tearing or anything like that in like forever. So there's definitely a huge difference between what we're seeing now and what we're seeing, like generations ago. So that's kind of how I look at this anyway. I don't think, it'd be interesting to see if they would do that maybe right before they launch their DLC or their expansion next year sometime. I think that would probably be a decent time to kind of come out with something like that, and see if that can like reignite interest. I could imagine that, oh hey, guess what, you can now do 60 frames on the Xbox Series X. Like, listen, I never bought the whole thing that that Microsoft would keep parity between the two consoles, because obviously the Series X and S are probably aimed at two completely different targets of people. And when you see stuff like that, it makes it kind of obvious, so not everybody, people that buy the Series S probably don't care as much about frame rate or resolution. They just want to play the games and stuff. Whereas people that buy the X care more about the frame rate and stuff like that. That's why they bought that. That's why they spent that extra money. So when you see stuff like that come up, that's probably where we see some of this discourse. And for me personally, when I look at it, I would have liked to seen it, but only if they could have kept a solid 60 throughout. I don't think anybody wants a frame rate that's kind of all over the place, and going up and down. Like, the roller coaster frame rates aren't good. So I would rather keep something locked, if they could do it. But if they do that, I would play it at 60 on, for the DLC or whatever they want to do, because I think that would be pretty cool to see. So I want to see, what everybody else thinks about this, though. Would you like to see Starfield at 60? Like, I don't think Starfield's the best looking game. In some instances, I look at Starfield and I think, hey, this game looks really, really good. And then there's also times where I look at what's going on and I say, this, it doesn't look as good as it could be. So, we'll see what happens in the future. I'm very curious to hear how they can update this and see what they do with, Starfield, and what they do with that engine in the future. Because, I think it really kind of comes down to, updating some of that stuff. And I think that's what we need to see above all else. So with that being said, I'll take a second to say thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys all have a great day. I'm Crap Gamer. This has been Crap Gamer Reviews. Have a fantastic day. Rack 'em up. Crap Gamer out.